Welcome back, friends, to the shop. So it's time for our annual winter car emergency kit. Now, I have done these every winter for the last few years, and I enjoy doing them. People like them. A lot has changed in this year's kit, primarily just because I've been made aware of new things that are better, different technologies that have come up, just superior things. So the goal is always to fit into smaller and lighter package, right? So I can tell you everything for my kit. Now this is going to apply to you guys that live in cold climate. And if you live in Florida and it never gets freezing, that's a whole different deal. That's not going to apply to you. If you live in Florida, you know, AAA is going to be a good... You call your AAA and then a man will come out and fix your problems, right? But for the rest of us, we like to fix our... So, how is it that I just started picking on Florida all of a sudden? This was not premeditated. I guess I could do this because I was a Floridian for a year, one of the worst years of my life. It is a godforsaken place. I know there are folks that like it. I'm not one of them. Anyway, the whole kit basically is going to fit, and my goal is to keep it inside of the 9-gallon action packer. These are the best boxes. A little more expensive than some of the other ones, but these are the best boxes. You probably the last one you're going to buy. I do like these action packers. I've got every one that I've ever bought. They've been really, really tough. Now, with that being said, the action packers are really great if this is not going to be in the passenger compartment. Do not put a hard case full of a bunch of heavy stuff loosely in a passenger compartment. If you have no other option, let's say you have a Jeep Wrangler, for example, and you want to do this, go see my man at Swag Outdoor. He actually makes a really beautiful aluminum tie-down deal that fits these action packers. That's a really good option. Or if you have a pickup, anyway, strap it down, get it tied down. You do not want that thing loose, flopping around. I'll tell you a story sometime of a MVA I ran on with a couple had put skis inside, and what happened with that. If you have a passenger car, get a soft bag. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. But having that soft bag with the blankets and the soft things that are in there, it's going to be way, way better loose in a engine passenger's compartment than this box. So be warned. Okay, first thing off, every man has got to have some retrieval stuff. Now we're going to have ourselves sorted out, and we know how to drive in the winter, and we're going to have good tires and all that. So this is typically going to be for our neighbors that are not prepared. Now, in the past, I have carried all sorts of different straps and stuff, but there is no question the very best anymore, and it's so much safer, is the heavy non-static This is the Bubba rope. Now, I can assume that the guys, as good as this is, the guys that have put this together are from the South. The Southerners have a very different sense of humor. The whole Bubba thing, I think, is quite humorous down there. Up here, not so much. No one would want to be associated with a Bubba. It makes me cringe every time I see that. I've even wanted to go so far as to get a different strap on there because I don't like the Bubba thing. Anyway, so what these are heavy-duty tow straps that were originally designed for the military. From what I understand, aircraft, the big Chinooks and stuff, would use them for picking up. And what it gives you is that you don't get a shock. You get a little bit of stretch in them. It's not enough stretch to hurt anything, but it really aids in your retrieval of vehicles. I used this for the first time last year with a Subaru that was buried in the snow. I pulled out, started pulling. It was so gentle when the rope came tight that I thought that it had slipped off and I lost it, and I looked in the back and he was out of the ditch. It was incredible. So the Bubba rope, they're expensive, but if you're kind of an off-road type of guy and do that sort of thing, you probably want to look into it. Now, traditionally, you would hook these things to a shackle or a clevis, right? A shackle primarily. Well, that's another big, chunky, heavy bit of kit, another piece of steel in your kit that you don't necessarily need anymore because of these soft, what do they call them? I'm just going to the Gator Pro. It's basically using the same stuff when you need to wrap around something, because of course we're going to have tow hooks and all that, the accoutrement that we need to do retrieval with, but the guy in the Subaru, the Soy guy in the Subaru, is not going to have any of that. He's probably not even going to have a trailer hitch unless he's a mountain biker, right? And if he does have a trailer hitch, he's not going to have a pin in it, right? So we need to think about all these things. But what these give you the ability to is that you can thread them around almost anything and they won't mar a surface. I mean, you got to make the call. You know, back in the day, we had a neighbor, we had a really steep hill where I grew up that they would shut down every time that it snowed. And I always enjoyed the retrieval part of it, you know, and being a good Samaritan and stuff. So I would park there and just wait and pull people out, because I always had a 4-wheel drive with a winch on it. And hooking onto people's cars, you know, I would always say, you know, if something gets broken, you know, I'm not responsible for this. I'm doing this as a kindness. Well, you know, how some people are. So you have to, you know, just be clear about it. But this kind of minimizes that, rather than throwing a chain or something really hard that's going to scratch or mar the paint. It's a soft connection that is very strong, that you can wrap around anything. And if it breaks, there's no energy in it. It's going to fall on the ground. It's not going to hurt you. So having a retrieval kit is really important. I can tell already this video is going to go very long. Now, if you want to save a few bucks and you don't have a heavy truck, but you want to have something that will work for most passenger cars, this is a great little kit here. I don't know these guys, but they sent this to me, and it's look up Custom Splice. I was really impressed with this little kit. What they've done is they've just basically taken a 50-foot piece of this, what do you call this stuff? The diamond line, this soft winch line, and coupled it with one of those one of those shackles. So this is the whole thing you need. You got an eyelet on one end that you can throw around your end or put through your trailer hitch pin, right? And then one of these to click around whatever you need to get to. And it's a very compact package. And this is an 8,000 pound rated straight line pull. So if you're not doing something crazy, if you're just pulling, you know, Subaru to Subaru or just most cars and light trucks, SUVs, this would be really great. And look how small it is, and that's a great package. So go see those guys at Custom Splice. It's a 1/4 inch by 50 foot of the blue cord, and just throw in one of those little shackle deals of a similar weight, and what a great little compact deal. And you got 50 foot of rope if you need to save some child that's fallen down in a well, right? So there is that. So that pretty much takes care of the towing side of it. Now, if you live in a slippery climate, I really recommend cat litter. Cat litter can be put under tires. So if you find yourself in a parking spot where the snow is melting or your tires are warming and melting, you just can't get any traction, you can sprinkle a little bit of this around and it just works like magic. It's really great for traction. Get you going, get you back on the road. Little cat litter is great. Raincoat. A raincoat in a hat. If you're going to put tire chains on, you're always going to have to crawl underneath of someone's vehicle. That's why I love one of my favorite things, an essential piece of kit that I have in everything, are the original space blankets. Get the good ones. I think it's a 6 foot by 6 foot. This can be used to stay warm. This can be used to wrap up someone up that's in shock. This can be put down as a tarp for crawling under and getting chains or things that got hooked up or wrapped around your axle, or even installing chains, digging out from a snowbank. This is really a good deal. And you buy a good one, the original Space Blanket brand, and it'll save it'll last forever. They just last a long time. Go to the Goodwill, get yourself a raincoat, something small like a backpack raincoat with a hat, put a Ranger band around it, and you got a pretty good combo right there. If you got lost or you couldn't get home or stuck in a snowbank, you know, with this blanket, this rain jacket, and a hat and a pair of gloves you're going to have in here, that'd go a long ways in keeping a guy comfortable in pretty much any environment if you keep all your clothes, you know, if you have a normal winter coat. So not expensive, but you can do it. I used to carry a big heavy wool blanket around, and then somebody sent me one of these military survival blankets, and it's got enough loft in it that it works pretty good, and it's way smaller and easier to pack around. So it's really good, especially if you have kids, to have a wool blanket, just an army style blanket in your kit. It will fit in this box. If you can get one of these smaller emergency ones somewhere, you know, that's really good too. Pair of leather gloves, I mean, that goes without saying. Even if it's a pair that's worn out, you don't have to buy a special pair. Nice to put on when it's 20 degrees and you're putting tire chains on. You just got to protect your hands. That's the first thing that gets cold and starts to freeze, and then you start losing that fine motor skill. As your body gets cold, it conserves energy by heating the core, and it pulls the blood out of the hands, and your hands will get really cold. So the hat and the gloves, leather gloves, are really important. Duct tape. A roll of duct tape, get the Gorilla brand or a mil-spec brand. The duct tape is not created equal. This is the best stuff I've ever used. So good is this stuff that I have put it on plywood for different things, marking different things. And when we went to pull it up, it actually pulled the wood fibers off of the plywood, the first layer. This is really good stuff. And you can't go wrong with this is such a good deal, the Slime tire kit. It's a plug kit. If you don't know how to fix and repair tires, it's very simple. You can read the instructions. I've got videos on it. But you get inside of this, you get your plug tool, your reamer. You've got a tire gauge in there. Oftentimes you can let pressure out of your tires. You can let them down to, say, 7 or 8 pounds and get yourself out of problems. You want to refill it, make sure you have your tire gauge in there. I throw a couple of deals of JB Weld in there because there's some extra space, and that's a great kit. And I think this thing is all of, it shocks me every time I buy one. They're like $6 or $7. So that's, and you can patch any tire with this. Very simple, no problem. Now, for emergency, you're going to want some sort of a flare or a beacon. I used to carry flares. I like the flares, but they don't seem to hold up. When they beat around in a box, I was always buying them all the time. I like the idea of having the flare and having the ability to have a really good fire starter. But I've switched over to these little flashers. They seem to work really good. There's lots of different manufacturers. I think a lot of people are branding these, but they're just off and on. They have several modes, and you can throw them down. They have magnets on the back. They stick on the back of your vehicle. You can put them on the road, but if you get slipped off the road or you're changing a tire on a blind corner, it's pretty dangerous and pretty scary to be able to go back a couple, 100 yards or so and throw these on the ground. That way people will be looking for you when they come around. And they've got built-in flashlights. So that's just another little extra layer of goodness there. But they're pretty affordable, and they come in 3-packs, and they're good. I have not had any problem with them. A fire starter, just some general fire starter, a fire steel or whatever you have, just leftover stuff from your camping, throw that in there. Just have, even if it's a Bic lighter, just have the ability to get a fire started if you need to. A shovel is really important. I would probably recommend my main concern is snow because we live in the mountains. And so I just have Mrs. W's old avalanche shovel. It's just a compact shovel. What might be better for just as a general purpose would be like a military style folding shovel, those little metal ones you've seen. But I'm usually doing snow, so I like this because it's big and you can move lots of snow with it and it folds into the box. So just some sort of shovel. The folding military one would be best. It's going to be all metal and much stronger. I keep a silky saw in here. We get a lot of windstorms and trees will come down, and if in my van, I'm not going to have a chainsaw with me. So a good sized silky saw that you could get through something, especially if you live in the country, or a tree that's down. I mean, I've come upon accidents where people have hit trees and a tree has fallen onto the door and the people couldn't get out because of the tree. If you're dealing with a branch that's 5, 6, 7 inches, it's hard to get through. You can't get through it and you can't break it. I mean, so having a saw is nice for just a bazillion different reasons. I don't carry a full-size axe anymore because of the saw. I just carry this. This is just a little Gerber or a Fiskars brand. I know, it's just kind of a throwaway deal. Put it in your kit, forget it, and leave it. Primarily for a hammer, more than anything. It's got a steel on the back, but I could chop through something if I need. So, I mean, I've always got to have an axe or hatchet of some sort. Now, I used to carry a pretty extensive tool kit, and you may need to do that. If you drive an older vehicle that you like to work on, they're more apt to break down than newer ones. If you're driving a late model vehicle, they're just so reliable anymore. And if you're not going on some great expedition, there's just not, I just don't see a whole lot of point in carrying a whole bunch of stuff. And the chances of you knowing how to work on new cars anyway is slim. So you just got to have some basic stuff. And so for me, what has become kind of a toolbox in one are these two tools right here. I know I keep going on about it, but the Knipex Cobra pliers, you can grab anything. They're so strong. And the Knipex adjustable wrench. This has basically eliminated, this right here, these two guys right here, are a toolbox in themselves. It is like the smallest, lightest toolbox a guy can get. You can get on any nut that is metric or standard. You have the ability with the pliers to grab things that get really big. I mean, just so many problems. If you need to get a knot out of a rope, right? I mean, there's just so many things that come up. Having these two things to be able to tighten a nut and grab onto something. If you need to hold the back, you got two. I can't go into all the details. You know what I'm saying, though. But these two guys right here are essentially a toolbox in one. My motorcycle kit, I've got miniature versions of these in there. It's replaced a whole bunch of stuff. I just don't need anymore. And I like to have screwdrivers, a Phillips and a regular. This right here, I think my man AVE said as much. He was talking about the most useful tools in a shop, and I agree 100%. This is one of them. Just your standard garden variety, normal, regular screwdriver. It's a pry tool, it's a scraping tool, it's a digging tool, it's a defensive weapon. I mean, would you want to get stabbed with that? It's so many things, but mostly a prier, and, a scratcher and a digger, and then a number 2 Phillips. It seems like, especially if you do a lot of sporting stuff and skiing stuff, there's always something that needs tightened up. Right there, that's your toolbox right there. You can do 99% of the things you need to do for most guys with these 4 tools. It's hard to beat. Have a glass breaker. If you don't know how difficult it is to break tempered glass, it's nearly impossible without something sort of a point on it. These are cheap. They've got hardened silica carbide type of tips, I think, on them. Some of them have built-in seatbelt cutters. You're talking a couple bucks. Have that in the glove box, and a glass breaker for sure. Very important. The new cars with the layered tempered glasses, they are tough. You can throw rocks at them, and they won't hardly break. Cell phones have become very important to us. I would add on your cell phone, make sure you have a mapping software and know how to use it that doesn't require cell signal. The best one out there is Gaia, Giai or something like that. Gaia, they have a free one and they have a paid one. That's going to install on your phone, and you can use that with a straight GPS signal, not requiring any cellular whatsoever. We use them. I've used it extensively for 2 years on wildland firefighting and dirt biking adventures. It's solid. It's really, really good. I was going to throw in a gazetteer, a map for your local area, but to be honest with you, with the phone, having it installed on there and the reliability that I've experienced with them, I've just kind of went that direction. With that being said, have a way to recharge your phone. So a battery backup, these things are so cheap nowadays. The Anchor ones are the best ones that I've used. This is not an Anchor, but it's just an extra one I had with the cell, with the cord. Wouldn't be a bad idea to throw an Android one in there. So if I use Apple, but if you have one Apple Lightning charger and then one USB, is it B? Whatever, USB, micro, and then some of the, whatever. Have what you need, and then have a wall plug. Because you might find, you go into a shop or something, hey, can I use your plug? My phone's down, I'm having car trouble. Have the adapter that you can plug into any wall outlet or any restaurant. So just kind of look at this as a triple package for your battery, for your phone to charge it up. Have that in there. And then finally, a flashlight. Have a good quality flashlight. You probably have an extra one that you can throw in there and forget. The one that I am going to and replacing all of the fancy tactical stuff that I have is the Streamlight Dually. It's a $30 flashlight. It is military grade quality. It is so tough. And it runs off of 3 AA batteries, lithium batteries. In any of your long-term storage stuff, lithium batteries, because that gives you a 25-year shelf life, and they last twice as long, and they're not as they just last a lot longer than the normal ones, especially for things that don't. They're just a higher quality battery. I've never had a lithium leak either, and that's a lot. So these are like 25 to 30 bucks. Excuse me. They have the dual lights, so they have the one that shines down at your feet, or you can sit it here, and it shines out for working on stuff. It gives you a nice subtle light, or you have the traditional switch on the other side, just a normal straight beam. No flashy mode, no nonsense. Affordable. It's got a nice pocket clip on that you can hang it on stuff. This is the light for if you're just going to have one. Great price point, tough, AAA, AA battery. And then finally, Fiberfix. I keep packing this around on everything. I've never actually used it, but I have seen it used, and it's pretty good stuff. It's a tape that when you unseal it, it's soft, kind of like a mesh tape, and you can wrap it around stuff, and it hardens as soon as it hits air. So if you had like an exhaust pipe that rusted out, fell on the ground, it's dragging and sparking, you could fix it with this deal because it will take some heat. So you could fix a broken shovel handle, many different things. So I throw it in there. I keep it in my kit. Now that basically rounds out the kit. Now there's a couple things I want to supplement, want you to think about, and that is, of course, you need to have a good first aid kit. That's a whole nother video in itself. If you want the best ones, the best ones are made by my friend David Pruitt at AMP3. And I'll put links to all this stuff down the subject. He makes various levels. He's a local Oregon guy. He's a friend of mine. He's a great man. He's an Navy ER doc. He knows what he's talking about, and he builds these. This is their biggest one. This is an investment, but something you want to think about. So have a first aid kit, whatever that looks like. Have a fire extinguisher. I'm not going to put this in the kit because I have them permanently mounted in my vehicles, but the best ones, and you only pay a little bit more for them, are Amerex. I didn't realize until recently the difference between the really cheap low-end budget fire extinguishers and versus the good USA Amerex style. Get the Amerex ones. I mean, it's just not worth saving a few bucks for to have something that is, those Chinese ones are so bad and they're just not reliable. This is the one you can count on. Have that mounted in your vehicle. I had a guy that saved my vehicle. I had an excavating pipe truck. I told you guys I used to smoke in the past. And of course, you know, not being a very good steward of the time, you know, you throw your cigarette butts out the window. Well, one flew around and landed in the back, and I had a bunch of ABS pipe fittings. It actually caught on fire. I looked in my mirror and I saw smoke rolling off the back of my, it was a one-ton flatbed Ford, like a early 90s. And I looked, I'm like, man, this seems dusty back there. And then it dawned on me, it was on fire. It was just raging fire when all those oil-based pipe fittings were burning. I pulled over and I got a shovel off of it, but it was starting to get away from me. A guy pulled over and he had a fire extinguisher in his vehicle, and he ran up there and we were able to put it out, and he saved my truck. I didn't have insurance, you know, I would have lost everything. So I've always carried one since then. Another thing to consider are jumper cables. That they don't fit in the box. The jumper cables, get good ones. Get the ones that the guys use on the tow trucks and get them long. Now, you know, things are not the same anymore. It used to be you could count on a guy having a battery mounted up in the front of his pickup. Not the case anymore. They could be anywhere. They could be under the seats or in all different strange places, and you're not always able to get bumper to bumper. And so if you don't have long ones, then they won't reach and you can't do anything, or you have to take the battery out, which is a huge pain, and you probably don't have the tools to do it, right? So make sure that they're 20 feet long or better. I think these are maybe even a little bit longer than that, 22s or so, and good heavy ones, especially if you're trying to jumpstart guys with diesels. I love those little jump packs. They're really convenient, and I use them around here, but I don't trust them. Every time that I put one in a vehicle and it stays in there for a while, I can't remember to recharge it, and when I need it, it doesn't have a charge in it. That is tried and true. The jumper cables will always work. Consider tire chains, of course. You know, it's all going to depend. I've always been a huge tire chain guy. I've always had four-wheel drives, chains all the way around. And to be honest with you, I don't carry them anymore because I have found the tires are so good now. I run Hakkapeliitta LT3s on the van. I'm actually I got a pair ordered today. I'll have them put on this Friday that are like magic. They're almost dangerous because they are so good that in the winter, in the snow and ice, that you forget that it's slippery outside and you can overdrive. So I always have to constantly remind myself, oh, it feels so planted, but it is slippery. Because we live in probably the worst driving conditions in the world. And I know people will say, well, Siberia and North Dakota, you know, it gets colder there. Yeah, it gets colder there, but you have a consistent road base. When it's 8 degrees in South Dakota, and there's snow on the ground, you know, it's pretty consistent. Where we live, it's just always hovering between that 32 degree range. So we'll go down into town at sea level, and it's raining down there in 34, and then we're driving up to 2,400 feet where we live, and someplace on there we're going to make that transition between that rain to the ice, and that's where you get that black ice and where it's slippery. It's always changing, and you have to be on your guard all the time. So it's super, super dangerous. Tires are very important. Europeans know this. Europeans, they've made it illegal to run a particular tire. You have to run a winter tire and a summer tire. And the Americans, they give us this, these tire companies give us this nonsense about 4-season tires. No such thing. It doesn't exist. What that is that's a crummy tire for everything. You need to have good tires, especially when you have your wife in the car. You know, if it's just you and you're a capable guy and you have a truck and a 4-wheel drive and you get these things, you know, you might be able to get away with it. I mean, I have for years. Couldn't always afford the tires I wanted. But when you start putting your wives and your little kids in these cars, you need to step up and get them good tires. Sorry guys, the camera shuts off at 30 minutes. I don't know where I went with, but I'll wrap up with this. On Mrs. W's 4Runner, I run the Huckapolita 9s. That's their best tire. And on the Adventure van, because it's a 1-ton, I run the LT3s, the new LT3s, all studded. So they're excellent tires. If you haven't heard of them or haven't used them, they're the best. Made in Finland, the Finnish invented snow tires. This is not a product endorsement. I get nothing from them. I pay full retail like you, but you just, you got to do everything you can to keep your babies and your woman safe. And that's having good tires is an important thing. Closing with that, I've done videos on this. If you live in a remote area, I would invest in an ACR. An ACR is a satellite beacon. They're not super expensive. You have to register it. There's a lot of paperwork that goes in with it, but there's no service fee. So you register it with NOAA, you put all the paperwork in it, you get a certificate back from them with your name and your unique serial number on the back. And how this works is, and I carry this whenever we go anywhere, remote, on my dirt bikes, on any adventure whatsoever. It's very small, light, smaller than a cell phone. But how these work is that you just deploy the antenna and you press the button. You press the button on here, and that basically sends out a distress call anywhere that will go directly to search and rescue that has all your personal information on it. So your family will be notified. Search and rescue will get going, and it is a very affordable peace of mind, to say the least. So something you might want to look into. Probably not appropriate for most people, but if you get yourself in the outback and in rural areas, it's definitely a good idea. And that's about it. Of course, you know, I'll close with this. Have a way to tow, to hook up your retrieval stuff. Get something like this for your hitch. Don't tow off a trailer ball. If you wonder why, go watch the YouTube videos and you can watch people getting killed with them. This is what you want. If you don't have a trailer ball and you don't have one of these shackle deals that goes in your receiver, just keep the pin in there. You can run, I don't have it here, but here we go. You can run your tow cable through the receiver pin and just put the cotter on there, and you can tow that way. It's a little bit tight. It's kind of a small diameter. It will put a little bit of stress on your tow cable, but it's better than a trailer ball. So just think about it. I ordered these here off a line. These are made by Rhino. I've been pleased with them. They're pretty affordable. They're good quality. This is the 3/4 inch shackle. Is it clevis? I always forget. I get it wrong. That you can slide in there. I have receivers front and rear on my trucks, all my vehicles, so I can pull from both directions. But one of these is a good investment. And that wraps it up. Wow, that was a long video. Lot to talk about, lot to think about. But remember, we are our brother's keepers. We have a duty as capable men, not only to look after our own families, but look after our communities. And this is just a place to start. This is not the end-all, be-all. It's just what works for me and just some things to think about. So you should be able to put this together for not a lot of money. It's kind of a fun thing to do in the summertime, be thinking about it, go to garage sales, pick up some of those things, pick up those jumper cables, pick up those, a used raincoat and such that you don't need to buy everything brand new and be fancy. But just be thinking about it, but be prepared. There's nothing that feels better than being able to pull over and help someone out, get them on their way. it's a cool thing. It's a cool feeling. It's a cool thing to do. So thanks for watching. Keep us in your prayers. May God bless you and your families, and we'll see you guys on the next video. One last thing I wanted to share with you, in case a 40-minute video wasn't long enough for you. A lot of you asked about my winter's jacket in the last video, where I got it, what is it. It's a very interesting jacket. It's made by Wranglerstar. I think it's how you pronounce it. It's an FJ, but I think the F is silent in Swedish language. It's a Greenland jacket made out of a waxed cotton. It's very similar to like a Filson jacket. It's a heavy tent cotton that has a special paraffin or wax on it, but it's a lot more suitable for daily wear than a Filson's garment. Like a Filson is almost, it has a strong odor to it, and it's very waxy, and it's these are a lot more. This is like Filson light, but they have a great pedigree. This is actually a reproduction of the original Greenland jacket that was designed for the 1969 expedition into Greenland, and that was originally made out of tent canvas. It's an exact copy of that original expedition jacket that the climbers wore. They added slash pockets. I think that's the only difference, and of course different colors and stuff. But these are wonderful heritage jackets that will last you a long time and a great fit. I like more the European style of clothing because it's a lot slimmer. I have long arms. I'm 6'4" and about just under 200 pounds, between 190 and 200 pounds, but I'm long. I have long arms and stuff, and a small 34-inch waist. And a lot of the American stuff to get my shoulders in and my arm length in, it's just huge and boxy. And maybe it's because so many Americans are so fat, but European stuff is cut a lot slimmer, so I tend to like that stuff better. But yeah, very nice jacket. It's not a waterproof jacket or one that you would ski in. It's just a good rough duty jacket that's going to be windproof and it's just going to get better with age. It's very much like Filson, but with a lot better cut. So if you're interested in that, I'll put links to all the stuff down there. You can get one of those too. I like the Wranglerstar stuff. It's very, very nice. It was kind of workwear for a long time, like the Filson, and now it's gotten a bit trendy, but it's still good. Very, very excellent quality. So that's the jacket. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next video.